Well, hello there. How are you doing today? This is me, a cat, a big, beautiful cat, telling you why I like the Dark Angels. Ooh. And I'm making those kinds of noises because I found some spooky gothic music and I thought it kind of fit these guys because, you know, they like this big, the big night type attitude thing they got going on. And that's really fun for me. And yeah, I just decided since last week I talked about how I thought the Emperor was a silly Billy, I thought it would be nice to, instead of complaining, talk about something that I like, which is the Dark Angels. Specifically, the Dark Angels during the Heresy, but, you know, we'll get into that. So, let's get started. Wata! This is us talking about Caliban, the Death World. So, Caliban is a Death World, and it's named after this fishy boy right here. He's from a Shakespeare play, and he's this fishy boy right here. Look at him, he's doing a little dance. But that does not tell you the horror of Caliban. Well, you see, like, Caliban was basically covered in, like, really thick forests, and also had a lot of animals that were trying to kill him. You know, poisonous sap, all kinds of crazy killy type stuff that made life there very hard. However, it was the great beasts of Caliban that made it harder than other things, because they had to fight and kill the great beasts because they would go and hunt humans. The Order of Caliban, the knightly order who eschewed tradition to welcome warriors from all walks of life. I really like these guys. So basically, Caliban had just a lot of different knightly orders on it that would fight each other for territory, but they would also, you know, some of them were chaos worshippers. Like we got some blood knights and other thingies in there. But these guys, the Order, as it would become to be known, was a group of knights who welcomed people from all sorts of different walks of life. You didn't have to be a noble to join the Order on Caliban. You simply had to prove yourself to the leadership of the Order. You had to strive to prove your knightly virtue, and, you know, you had to strive to prove your martial prowess. And sometimes you had to go out and hunt a great beast and try to bring back its pelt or something crazy. Or you had to, you know, rise through the ranks and be trained in all these different things. And kind of the cool thing is that they kind of have a little bit of a proto-Astartes thing going on. Of course, they were not Astartes, but they did have, like, chain blades and, you know, pistols and weaponry and stuff like that. And they had armor that had, like, mechanical bits and stuff like that on it. So they weren't, like, completely and totally primitive. In fact, they were pretty cool. Mix of different things. I really enjoyed the aesthetic of, like, the knightly orders. They were certainly not as powerful as Astartes, but they had the, you know, like, they had, like, chain swords and pistols and things like that, and they used those to fight and vanquish the great beasts. And they, you know, at first, they were just establishing a new order on Caliban to help lead the people who would join them. However, over time, thanks to Lionel Johnson, they got way bigger and ended up kind of taking over the whole planet. The Lion. He grew up in the forest of Caliban, so at first he was not, you know, the whole thing with the Primarchs getting scattered. He got scattered, but he ended up in the great forests of Caliban, where he basically was going around just killing great beasts by himself. He killed a lion, a great lion of Caliban, which is, you know, a very important deed. Like, they're like one of the most vicious beasts on Caliban. He was, you know, of course, being a Primarch, was considered brilliant and was had incredible martial prowess, especially with his great sword. His eventual goal was to kill all of the great beasts of Caliban, to bring Caliban into a new age of prosperity. And because, you know, people weren't really enjoying life on Caliban before that. It was very difficult. And his thought was that if you could kill the great beasts and bring Caliban under the order of, you know, the Order, then things would be better off. Originally, he promised to destroy, you know, all of the great beasts within a fairly short period of time. I think it was 3 years. I can't remember exactly, but he promised to do it in a fairly short time. It ended up taking 10 years, but they did it. They went through and they slaughtered the great beasts of Caliban, and would basically establish the Order as the leadership of Caliban. So that's pretty cool. And you can see the lion here, he has a pretty cool beard and pretty nice hair. He also has pretty nice armor. I rather like that armor. It is also true that the Dark Angels, this is where they got their symbol. They actually got their symbol that they use in modern 40k from the Order. When the Emperor showed up, there was a plot to assassinate him. Of course, it wasn't going to work because it was like just some dummy with a bunch of explosives. I don't even know what he thought he was going to do. Like run forward and explode at the Emperor? No idea. Didn't end up working because of a famous Dark Angel who was like very courageous and, you know, ended up opening a can of what we would call whoop ass on him. And by a can of whoop ass, I mean he went into a crowd and grabbed him. But when the Lion met the First Legion, they were called at first the First Legion. They did not have the name of the Knight, I'm sorry, the Dark Angels. And they were like the proto Astartes. They were the first. They were kind of what the rest of the Astartes legions were based off of. And the Lion, when he met them, he decided that he wanted to rename them to the Dark Angels. So they were named the Dark Angels. Luther, who was basically like one of the Lion's best friends and like one of his confidants, and he was the guy who discovered him out in the wild. Luther was raised to be a false Astarte. See, Luther was too old to be given gene seed and have him basically grow up to be an Astarte. So what they ended up doing was doing a ton of different genetic, and I think there was some cybernetic augmentation. They did all kinds of augmentation to his body to make him as close to an Astartes as you could, but without the gene seed, he was never like, you know, as tall as an Astarte and wasn't quite as natural as the Astartes, but he was still, you know, a force to be reckoned with. This is similar to what happened to Cor Phaeron and a couple of other guys in other legions, but he ended up being inducted into the ranks of the Astartes as the false Astarte, and he commanded a great deal of respect from the members of the Dark Angels, as well as he was also fairly respected by the Lion, which got into some weird stuff later on, but you know, hey, the Lion doesn't always have to act like a smart boy, and sometimes he acts like a real dumb boy. Sometimes he acts like a really dumb boy. But it kind of depends which time you're talking about. Part of what and this is part of like what I really like about the Dark Angels is that they have these knightly origins, and they take them on, and it's like it's just really cool to see like the Space Marines have this knightly quality about them. Like one of the things that I personally think is really cool about a lot of Warhammer stuff, when I talk about fantasy, Age of Sigmar less so, but fantasy or 40k, is that it has like real historical influences. Like different legions kind of ape different like kinds of warriors and things like that. And I just think it's really cool that they ape the knightly orders. And there is like a bit of a difference between like the angels who grew up on Caliban and the Terran angels who came from Earth, which is something that is true in a lot of different legions. But these guys, you know, they're really into their swordsmanship and their honor and their things like that, and their idea of like defending the weak and, you know, holding up in spite of all odds, which is of course something that's very similar to a lot of different Space Marine legions. I just think that these guys personally carry the aesthetic really well. There's like a lot of like hoods and dark imagery, and there's also a lot of imagery of like wings that show up. Of course, like I said, the symbol for the Dark Angels is the sword pointing down with the two wings next to it, which is from the original symbol that the Order used on Caliban. I really also like their mysterious nature. Like they like to hold secrets and they like to do things in a very ritualized fashion. I also think it's kind of interesting that they have this whole element of the Watchers in the Dark, which are a strange Xenos species that we don't know a ton about, but they are basically really powerful psychers and are bound and determined to help stop chaos and things like that. And they're just these like little guys. And you can see them on a lot of Dark Angels models. You can see like little Watchers following them around. Like I think on the Azrael model, you can see one for sure. And there's also, I think, a couple on the Lion model. But I find their whole thing about like being kind of mysterious and playing things close to the chest pretty interesting. I would argue that this gets less interesting in the actual 40k era, where it's like, oh man, they're just because a big secret about them, and don't tell anybody I told you this, but there's a thing called the Fallen, because there was a whole division in the Legion about loyal people staying like with the Imperium, and there were those who wanted to break away from the Imperium and join Horus. And a lot of these guys were on Caliban, and it ended up becoming a whole thing when the Lion came back to Caliban. Because Caliban is Balaban. Now it's exploded. There's no longer Caliban. Excuse me. I also think that they're pretty cool because they're capable of mastering a variety of tactics. A lot of Space Marine chapters and legions kind of do one thing and kind of focus more on less on one thing. With maybe like a little internal division for stuff like that. But the... Excuse me. Jeez. But the original Dark Angels had various different wings that would go out and specialize in specific things. Like, for instance, the Death Wing were specialized in Terminator armor and like heavy assault and things like that. But then the Raven Wing, who are these guys here on the other side, so these guys are the Death Wing, these guys are the Raven Wing. And the Raven Wing are all like bikes and like jet bikes and like rapid assault with like land speeders and things like that, and they do these various different things. These are the two like remaining big wings. There were other wings back during the Heresy, but over time into the 41st millennium they kind of stopped using those wings as much, and now you mostly have the Death Wing and the Raven Wing, and then like the regular Space Marines and the Dark Angels. Also, they just look great. I just think that they look really cool. I really like this Heresy era Dark Angel here. He's actually a Fallen, you can see, because he has like the little 8-pointed star on him. But still, this is very similar to how they would have looked, except for they removed the stars. Because they had this black armor and like these hoods and stuff like that. And I think it looks really cool. I think even their more modern incarnation, which this is, I think, supposed to be the Lion. But anyway, like their more modern incarnation with this green and the gold they got going on there, I think it looks absolutely fantastic, and I really enjoy that. I think they're pretty cool for all the various different little things they got going on there. I do also like the old, you can't see it super well because my big head's in the way. Whip! I do like their old Heresy pattern bolters as well, the ones that they have. They also have like this very long, like a lot of long-standing traditions. So they have like kind of a little bit of an older. Oh, wait, there you go. Now they have a little bit of an older look to a lot of their stuff, and I think that's pretty neat. Also, lots of wings and like this kind of gothic thing they have going on, where like, you know, a lot of Space Marine chapters, if you look at their ships and things like that, you really see the gothic aesthetic go through. But I think that the Dark Angels are really good. Partially because they also have the nature of that like gothicness kind of like influence their armor designs and things like that, and they look more like knights than a lot of regular Space Marine chapters, and I think that's pretty cool. Oh, and here's another thing. The Lion is cool now. See, I'm currently going through like the vast majority of the Horus Heresy books. Not all of them. There's some that I'm just probably going to skip. But I'm currently on 30. I've gone through 30, and there's like 64 total, one of which hasn't come out yet. But I've gone through 30, and I will say that the Lion is one of these characters that, during the Heresy itself, I don't know how much I like him. Sometimes he seems to do things that are very silly, and he does things that just kind of make me go, oh wow, that's kind of dumb. But a lot of Primarchs do dumb things, because sometimes they're just like plot contrivance. But the Lion comes back, and he's now back in the modern 40k. And one of the things that I think is really cool about this is he seems to have really learned that he made a lot of mistakes, and he's really trying to undo them. And right off the bat, I'm just like, wow, okay, you earned my forgiveness for all your dumb stuff in the past by actually being a grown-up and admitting that you were wrong and admitting that you need to change and stuff like that. So now he's around and he has a magic closet. So if you're into magic closets, that's really cool. He can just basically like pull stuff out of the closet, and it will occasionally teleport him different places. And he's really good at uniting people. And now he's just like a cool guy. He used to be kind of... I have heard people say that he was maybe actually neurodivergent because of some of the things he did in the books. I don't know about that. I will say that he seems very unpersonable in a lot of those books, and he seems like he has a really hard time trusting or relating to anybody, but now he's come back, and it seems like he legitimately wants to change and help people out. And he says, as long as you haven't like straight up fallen into chaos and are not like completely corrupted, if you come back and like say that you're willing to fight with me now, I'm going to forgive anything you've done in the past, because we need to stick together now. And it's like, wow, that is just leader material right there, baby. That is 1,000 billion times better than the Emperor, who is a nerd head of badness. Not a good nerd head like my head, but a badness. Anyway, I really do like the Lion. He's probably now my favorite. He's my favorite Primarch in actual 40k now. I wouldn't say he was my favorite during the 30k stuff, but during 40k now, essentially, he's become more and more my favorite, and I like him more and more. And he has this gritty determinism to him that determination that I really, really enjoy. And here, this is the end. And this is a picture of Lady Lionel Johnson, drawn by this person here, CNMBWJX. They do a lot of like Lady Primarch art, and I think that it's really cool. And I personally really like this image of the Lady Lionel Johnson, and I just really enjoyed it, and I thought, why not share it? But yeah, that's just like a little short thing about why I really like the Dark Angels, and I really like their aesthetic, and I really like a lot of things about them. They're probably one of my favorite legions simply because of their aesthetic and the way they function and the way that they are. I'm not necessarily super big on modern Dark Angels for no other reason than even though they're still pretty cool overall, I think that their constant suspicion is a little bit tiresome. But it's okay. With the Lion coming back, maybe he can fix them. And that would be real cool, wouldn't it? Anyway, yeah. Also, you can't see it because of the way I decided, but that's actually Magnus behind there going magic to put a little magic beam on. But yeah, I really enjoy Lionel Johnson. I really enjoy him also in the Imperium Secundus stuff. I think it's kind of funny to have this crazy lion running around like, I'm gonna catch Conrad! Which is just very, very amusing to me. Anyway, what legion do you like? What Primarchs do you like? You go ahead and put them down in the comments below. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed listening to me babble about how much I like the Dark Angels and their cool stuff. And I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I hope that you know that God loves you and that I love you, and bye-bye, love you, bye. And also, Lionel Johnson here, the lady, even though she's not smiling, she thanks you for stopping by, and she'll wave with her sword hand when you go away. Bye-bye. Bye, have a great one. Bye.